Hey, everybody, and welcome to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel and other things that I excitingly point at, or just air drum, one or the other. We are here today to talk about things that make me happy. Honestly, it was actually something someone asked if we could talk about, and I'm like, yes. Let me ask Addison because he makes the decisions. But it is something I love talking about because it is young wide receivers. And while we are talking about second-year wide receivers, this show, number one in our hearts. So we were talking about the second-year wide receivers. 2022 was a bad draft class. Oh no, but we got a lot of really good wide receivers out of it. So Chris Olave is the wide receiver 5 in March ADP, and we are just about done with the April mock. So I'm very much looking forward to April. So the first trade we have, 12-team Superflex. It is Chris Olave and the 301 and 304. So it's Chris Olave for Devonta Smith and Isaiah Pacheco. Caution, Team A is giving up the highest valued assets and the most pieces in the deal. All right, this is one of those times where you can just kind of ignore that one because it's the 301 and the 304, and who cares? Chris Olave comes in at 582, and that side just totals at 686. I'm not going to read the values of the picks. Devonta Smith, 449, and Isaiah Pacheco at 118. Before we move on and actually start talking about this, what are your thoughts on Pacheco for this coming season? Like, are you riding right now thinking either he's going to be the guy in Kansas City, or at least he's going to be the 1A guy? Like, do you feel any of that?
No. I don't want him on my team by the end of this month because
Okay.
I feel like the Chiefs are going to draft somebody. This class is deep enough that they could add a Tyjae Spears or a Charbonnet or a Kendre Miller or a Zach Evans, and then all of a sudden Pacheco's value is just dust. So
I loved watching him play, and a lot of it was because usually players are who they are, or like they adjust their game, or they like learn a little. Like Pacheco was nothing.
yeah,
By the end of this season, he was nothing like what he came in as, and it was fun to watch. So I root for him a little bit, and I do have him on a lot of teams.
yeah.
Okay, so I am insanely biased in this because I really like Olave. He's really good. I love Devonta, and I really like Isaiah Pacheco. All of that being said, I am not at a place yet where I could say I would just swap out Olave for Devonta. I don't like same position, same tier trades anyway, even though I think this might be a tier down. Exactly my point. And even though I really do like Pacheco, I'm with you. There's a very, very good chance this draft ruins a lot of these wide running backs. Like, hey, Khalil Herbert's the guy in Chicago. I mean, for now, calm down. Like, there's just so many running backs that we're used to saying, oh, like he's not drafted day 2. He doesn't matter anymore. Like, we're going to see running backs drafted in the 5th round that will matter because there's that many of them and they're good. And we're not looking for great when it comes to chipping into Isaiah Pacheco or chipping into Khalil Herbert.
Right.
So this worries me. So this pretty much does come closer to just swapping Olave for Smith than I would want it to, in which case I'm sticking with Olave. Even if I felt they were even, they're not to the world, so there's no reason to do that.
I love the idea of all of this where you're trading down from Olave to Devonta Smith, the
Yes.
tiering down aspect, and you get additional assets or draft capital or whatever that extra kind of plus is in order to do that. Devonta Smith, I've actually highlighted in a video previously this year where I suggested doing it with Jalen Waddle and going down to Devonta Smith, picking up an extra late first. That's kind of how you maintain production, so to speak, while still adding draft capital or adding additional assets to continue building out your roster and your value. So I like the idea of what you're doing here. I just don't think Pacheco is that piece. Like the analyzer here says that we are 120 points off. So 120 points you need to add to Pacheco with Devonta Smith in order to get to Olave and the couple of thirds or whatever. I went into the analyzer. I would rather just have Devonta Smith and a 24 first. Would you rather have that than Pacheco?
If this is not the championship team's 24 first, I do that very quickly.
I don't even know if that matters so much. It's just it's a first. You can still do more with that first later on throughout the rest of the year. Even if it is a later first, it's still going to be a better asset than Isaiah Pacheco, in my opinion, in 2 weeks, let alone in 8 months. So
I agree.
So I think that there's just a little bit of value that's missing here. Like I said, love the idea. I just don't think the execution was right there because I don't think Pacheco is that piece.
The next trade we have is very, very interesting because this goes back to what I said in the very beginning of trading these second-year players for picks. And this is a year where it makes it a little I can't even think of it but again, that's not English. Because we have a lot of quarterbacks going up top. So Chris Olave for the 103 and DJ Chark. I don't know why DJ Chark, but good for you, I guess. Chris Olave for 582, the 103 for 517. So this is relatively close. I would have preferred the 102. If it was the 102, I probably would have just said, okay, I get it, because you get to choose your quarterback. And choice matters. I get, there's 3 of them. At least you get to pick 2 out of 3. Mm-hmm. You're not, to me, you can't be sad if the 102 goes Anthony Richardson and then you get whoever you like out of Stroud or Young. These are 3 very good, either real life quarterbacks or will be very good for fantasy quarterbacks, assuming Richardson gets drafted in a spot where is high enough and he is named the starter.
Right.
So I get this. This is a team move. This is, all right, well, I have Chris Olave, but I only have 1 quarterback and I'm in this rebuild and I need to do this. I still don't like it. Again, if it were the 102, I would feel a lot better about it. But I get that Chris Olave was somewhere, he finished the season around wide receiver. I think it was 24 to 28 in points per game. He did not set the world on fire. He also missed a couple of games and had Andy Dalton. To the point where they got Derek Carr, and that's an upgrade. So I get it. I love Chris Olave. I love his situation. I do agree that he should be a top 10 wide receiver based on everything we've seen. This is rough for me. I don't know what I would do. Honestly, I would want something better than DJ Chark. I would need this to be more than I think it would be able to be. I want something more than Elijah Moore, but a player I like that much. Juju?
I like Juju.
And I like Juju in New England. So, okay, so let's... that's how different it has to be. It's not that big of a difference. I mean, it's 80 points in the analyzer, but, to a team, I don't think it matters. That would make me feel well enough to do this. It would make it practically even in the analyzer, and it would make me feel better in that even at least in a 2-for-1, I at least got the right amount of value back, if not getting more back for the most valuable asset.
What's really weird to me is, so you just said that Chris Olave is the most valuable asset in this deal, and I'm not 100% sure on that, which is weird because I know the analyzer's telling me it is, but it's just having the ability to get a quarterback in Superflex who has either the upside that Anthony Richardson has if you're swinging for the fences there, and the floor that he's going to give you in year 1 if he does start, just because he's going to be a rushing quarterback. He doesn't have to be a good Justin Fields was a top 5 fantasy quarterback for over half the year this year because he rushed for 60, 70, 100 plus yards every single game. And so you get that, or you get the upside of Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, who both seem like they're just so pure passers with immense upside if they're thrown in the right situation.
Yeah.
I will take that every day over a elitely valued wide receiver. I think Olave can reach elite wide receiver tier. I don't think he's not there yet production wise, but he's valued like he should be there, which I don't disagree with. That's just where we're at with him right now because he is a 2nd-year wide receiver who showed good things in year 1, but he's not there yet.
I will do what I love doing and giving the smallest sample sizes of smallest sample. Actually, I technically have 2 here. In Trade Addicts 11, in the startup we did, Chris Olave was taken at the 301 and the 103 was taken at the 303.
And I took the 102 a few picks before that.
207.
Yeah.
So. And I'm in one of the Superflex mocks, and here's the 101. 102. The 103 was taken at CJ Stroud was taken at the 209, and Olave was taken at the 307.
Wow.
By the way, I got Anthony Richardson at the 312.
Wow.
Right?
That's pretty good.
Okay, so let's move on. The next one we want to talk about is Garrett Wilson, who is wide receiver 7 in March ADP. They've been right back to back the entire time, but finally Olave made the jump over Wilson. Wilson doesn't have a quarterback technically just yet, and Olave got, like we said, somehow an upgrade into Derek Carr. And so maybe that's why they swapped, but who knows. This one in a 12-team Superflex league, this is one we talk about. Garrett Wilson, a 24 first and the 112 for the 101, and Chris Godwin. Like, this is something you need to absorb before we... Garrett Wilson, a 24 first and the 112 for the 101, and Chris Godwin. Garrett Wilson, 628, a 24 first, 198, the 112, 189, total of 1014. The 101, 820. Chris Godwin still at a very respectable 350 for a total of 1170. I don't know.
I'm taking the 101.
I think that's the right answer. It's really funny. After our show last week, I made so many trades, upgrading not just quarterback, but every other position where it's just, well, let's face it, wide receivers. That's the only other position I'm trading for in the non-point scoring season. But because it just does get to the point where it's like, okay, I don't really mind giving these things up to get these elite assets. Mm-hmm. Everything we just said about Chris Olave, about the 103, is the exact same for this. Garrett Wilson did really, really well. There's a little bit of question going on about who his quarterback is going to be, though it does seem like 90-something, I'm going to make up a number, percent that it will be Aaron Rodgers. Bijan is really, really, really good. He is steadily going in the first round of startup Superflex drafts in the first round. Mm-hmm. So we have to value, that's how we have to value this pick, at least. So the question is Bijan Robinson enough of a positional advantage? And do you feel good enough putting Chris Olave's value in that spot, or the player on your roster, depending on how you feel about Chris Godwin and what you plan to do with him going forward, to give up this? Yeah, I do.
I think the key factor here is Chris Godwin. Funny enough, like I'm taking Bijan over Garrett Wilson, and yeah. I would add that 112 to Garrett Wilson to go get Bijan if your team is ready for Bijan.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Yeah, like to get that elite running back all day. And then I'm taking Godwin over the 24 first as well too. So I think Godwin really is the key piece here, where yes, you are losing out on an elite young wide receiver, but you're still getting a lot of production out of Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
And you're getting, obviously then you're getting Bijan. So that's going to be fantastic too. But like, I think Baker Mayfield can be good enough for Chris Godwin for fantasy. It's kind of like how we still feel kind of good about Devontae Adams because he's Devontae Adams, even though he has Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, it might be a different kind of season for him. He might not have a huge A-dot or anything like that, but Jimmy G will get the job done for Devontae Adams. Baker Mayfield will get the job done for Chris Godwin. Last time, Baker Mayfield, I mean, this is 2019, but Jarvis Landry had 83 for almost 1,206 in 2019. And that was with OBJ having 75 for 1,004 as well too. Like that's we've seen Baker Mayfield be capable of being able to support that. And maybe it's not to that same exact extent, but I think Chris Godwin is a better wide receiver than Mike Evans right now in their careers. I think Baker Mayfield is going to rely a lot more on Chris Godwin than Mike Evans. So I think you're going to like the production that you're getting out of him as a top 20 with the potential to be top 15, 16. I think if maybe certain touchdowns or maybe he catches closer to 100 catches, in PPR leagues, that's going to be good production to where you're just going to be so happy the fact that you just got Bijan Robinson. Yep. And I don't think you're really going to regret having traded away Garrett Wilson and a pair of firsts, especially if that's like, if you're the 112, that's your pick. And then that's your 24 first as well too. You just added Bijan Robinson and Chris Godwin to the team that you just won the championship to. Yeah, I have to take Bijan and Godwin in this one. I think that's the side for me.
Yeah, I started out a little wavery, but the more I kept talking, more like, nope, this is just the 101.
Yep.
All right, I don't think there's going to be any wavering on this one. Garrett Wilson for the 108 and 109. Garrett Wilson at 628, the 108 at 291, the 109 at 262 for a total of 553. I would learn to do cartwheels so I could do a cartwheel when I send the 108 and 109 and get Garrett Wilson. There's a lot of players in that area where we need to see where and when they get drafted. A couple of wide receivers, like after that, like Zay Flowers is, soaring,
Johnson.
whatever DLF has on their main thing of all of the articles where it's like Zay Flowers stock rising. And yes, someone's got to take Will Levis in the first. So we don't really know what that 8 and 9 are, but I know right now with the players I value, and don't get me wrong, if I'm sitting there with the 108, it's going to be so hard for me not to take Levis, assuming he gets drafted in the early first.
Right, like if he's like top 10 pick, yeah.
Yeah, but all I could do right now is say, again, I don't want to be boring. All I can say is these two picks are further outside of my tier than I want them to be. If Levis pushes himself up, okay, maybe I lose out on Addison and Addison and Charbonnet, Quentin Johnston. Like, again, guys I like, but we need to see what happens with them. We need to see where they go and all of that stuff. But I can have Garrett Wilson. I really, really like Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson did really, really well with like Joe Flacco.
and Mike White. Yeah.
Well, I mean, NFL MVP Mike White. I get it.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is very, very easily Garrett Wilson to me.
This is like whenever people say like, what should I buy or sell Garrett Wilson for? And people say like 2 firsts. This is what I think of when it's like, this is a great way to buy Garrett Wilson for 2 firsts, because it's the 108 and the 109. But in this draft class, with how tiers are starting to already kind of flesh out, and players that we're starting to value, this is like you just said, these are 2 players that you are probably okay with, like you like, and you're probably all right, but they're just not Garrett Wilson. Like it'd be a totally different story if this was 105 and 109. Like that would be like if you could solidify yourself Jackson Smith and Jigba plus one of those other players that you like, that's so much better. Or if it's Jahmyr Gibbs or one of the quarterbacks, whoever it is, that's definitely a lot different. So, but the fact that it's just 2 picks and also kind of at the top of a tier too, like where you have to make the decisions about who the best players in this tier are. And we might not necessarily have a consensus on who that is after the draft. Just take Garrett Wilson, man. It's just so much easier.
Let's move on to Drake London, who comes in at wide receiver 11 and is a player I have absolutely just bought into. Like, I'm here for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it's a thing and it's happening. So it is what it is. 12-team Superflex. Drake London and David Montgomery for Chris Godwin and Najee Harris. Drake London coming in at 490. David Montgomery 116 for a total of 606. Chris Godwin, 350. Najee Harris, 335 for 685 total. So this does come in favor of Chris Godwin and Najee Harris. I want to just say, give me Drake London. I really, really do. And Drake London easily has the highest ceiling of any of these players to me, where the answer should, like 2 years ago, would have been Najee Harris, but Steelers are what Steelers are. Sorry. I do still think he'll be better than he was last year, but that's not really the point. Like the safety of Godwin and Najee Harris coming in, being more valuable than the other side, and I think I do agree with that. I think I take my chances at this, though. I think I go for the ceiling of London and hope that Montgomery walks in, and not to say he's going to score 83 touchdowns like Jamal Williams did, but if he gets that inside the 20s plus work like Jamal Williams did, and if Swift missed a couple of games, we know Montgomery can be a guy, like the guy for a team, because he was for the Bears. And this is a better offense than the Bears offense he was the guy for. So, well, I do think this is probably really what Montgomery should be valued at. Like he should be lower valued at this point. I think production wise, he'll give you better than this. So I don't like it. I won't think I feel great about it, but I love dropping down 6 years at age at wide receiver and getting a running back that I think wouldn't be completely shocked if scored similarly to each other, besides the fact that they're both 25. you know, it's always fun to remember that Najee came into the league at 27, so he went back 2 years, and that's how it works when you come in that age. Like, Hendon Hooker's going to be 24 soon and then be 29. It's very weird. NFL numbers is just strange. I take the swing and go for the London side, but I think it's a good trade.
That's the side that I also want. Like, when I first saw this, my reaction was, I just really want Drake London out of this. But then I kind of looked at it and I was like, I do really like Chris Godwin. Like, I just said all that stuff about him too, just a little earlier. I think Najee's going to have a better year than he did last year. It seemed like at the end of the season, the Steelers just kind of leaned on him a little bit more as Kenny Pickett. They kind of turned Kenny Pickett into a game manager. They wanted to decrease the number of interceptions that he was throwing. And they just kind of let Najee do his thing. And it seemed like Najee was also getting healthier from the foot injury, the problem that he had at the beginning of the year. So I think Najee has, I don't want to say that he's going to have rookie year Najee numbers, because a lot of that was really kind of the reception work. And I don't think he's going to have the receiving work with Kenny Pickett because of Big Ben's noodle arm. But I do think Najee's going to be like if he's just a really good higher end RB2, like RB15, I wouldn't really be all that surprised. I don't think that's in David Montgomery's range of outcomes. I know a lot of people really think that it is and should be, but I've also seen a lot of mock drafts recently having Bijan going to the Lions. So, you can argue all you want about whether or not that's smart for them to do, but somebody in the top 20 is going to take Bijan Robinson, and he's going to kill a running back or multiple running backs. And if it's the Lions and they just say, screw it, we need that running back, we're done messing around with Swift, and Monty is Monty, we just want Bijan, Monty's dead. There is.
Well, as an NFL team, you probably feel really good with David Montgomery being your second
as your backup. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that being like what JT kind of was supposed to be had Marlon Mack not torn his Achilles, because they drafted JT 4 months after Marlon Mack had 1,000-yard season. Yeah. So it was, but then Marlon Mack tore his Achilles, and then JT became JT. I still think that would still happen with Monty and Swift and whatnot, but Monty would be dead essentially, because we're just waiting for Bijan to take over. If Monty was somebody I'd feel better if it was even if it was Cam Akers or Aaron Jones, somebody who Miles Sanders, maybe.
I'm all in on Miles Sanders on Carolina, so I'm down.
Yeah, I want to say Drake London, but Godwin and Najee, I think, is the production side to take on this one. The home run swing is Drake.
You
London.
Definitely feel better looking at your roster with Chris Godwin and Najee Harris plugged in there.
Sure.
But the other side's a lot of fun.
But London's a lot of fun.
This next one, speaking of, all right, and Addison changed settings on the analyzer and didn't actually type in what they are. I'm guessing this is one QB. Drake London, George Pickens, and Rachaad White. Whew. For Brees, you don't have to type it now. We're already talking about it. 12-team, one quarterback. Drake London, George Pickens, and Rachaad White for Brees Hall, the 202, and Elijah Moore. Drake London coming in at 673. George Pickens, 279. Rachaad White, I have so many questions about Rachaad White, at 214, which is a nice price. For 1165. Brees Hall, the stud that he is, 829. The 202 at 161, and Elijah Moore at 153 for a total of 1143. I love Brees Hall. I really, really do. Brees Hall is one of the very few running backs I would go out of my way to acquire in the non-point scoring season.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do this one, though. Because Elijah Moore at best is going to be a wide receiver 3 for fantasy. It's unfortunate. I love that he moved. I actually like the place he went to. But it's just not. Sorry. We've just talked about what we think of Drake London. Drake London being the wide receiver 11, us liking the upside of Drake London. George Pickens, I hope you don't have, not you specifically, anyone watching, he's not going to be a top 12 wide receiver anytime soon. I will say anytime soon because I don't know the future, but there's a lot of very talented, very young wide receivers out there. And yes, George Pickens has shown he is talented. He has shown his ability to make big plays.
Because he can't separate. Sorry, keep going.
What's like anti-Homer? Like where you just like someone a little more because they're on your team. Like, are you a Marge? Like, you know, for like Homer and Marge. Like George Pickens will be a very solid wide receiver too, I think, and he may have those spike weeks. Like this is like pretty much replacing Claypool with a more talented version of Claypool fantasy wise. Like I think that's what it is. Like he's not going to lose you any weeks, but he could win you a week or two every once in a while. But I still like it. I like having George Pickens on my teams. He's like, not to equate players whatsoever, he's like the Gabe Davis level of guys where I love having him as like my last wide receiver plugged in or like my last flex spot because again, he won't lose you anything, but there's a chance he'll catch multiple touchdowns in any given game.
Sure.
And then Rachaad White, like, why wouldn't he be the guy there?
Oh, I love Rachaad White.
Not because of Chase Edmonds.
No.
And
it's a rookie.
The offense can't be what it was last year or the year before because even when Tom Brady isn't at his best, sorry, Baker, like you're not that. Like, so this offense isn't going to be as good as it was, but like still, like Rachaad White feels like he's not being valued. Like right now, he's still probably going to be a starting running back when the season begins. And I think he will be. So again, I love Breece Hall, but I don't think I send this package for him.
I like sending it for Breece Hall because I don't like George Pickens. He's valued highly and I don't really get it. I do really like Rachaad White. I think he's going to be kind of like a lighter version of Tony Pollard, which I you know, even if they bring in somebody, you know, Rachaad White was on pace for like 250 touches last year over the back half of the season. And that was with Leonard Fournette still stealing a lot of touches, exactly like how Pollard was with Zeke stealing a lot of touches too. It's just probably White's not as talented as Pollard. They're not going to score as many touchdowns as Dallas, so it's going to be a lighter version. But I still really do like Rachaad White. Obviously, I love Drake London, but Breece Hall is just so freaking good. Like he is my dynasty RB2 right now.
I can't argue it.
Yeah, and I just think that he is going to be phenomenal. Robert Saleh actually just came out and said that he's doing great. Obviously, his head coach is going to say that he's doing great off an ACL, but I do believe that with Hall's age, with the fact that it was just a very clean ACL tear, there's no other ligament damage and all that crap like what happened with Javonte and J.K. Dobbins and even Saquon Barkley to an extent. Like, I think Breece Hall, yeah, he's probably going to have a little bit of rust coming in to start in September, but
it'll take time for him to,
October through the back half of the year, he could be a league winner just like he was starting to be last year. And the 202 is not really going to be great. Like we were talking, like you're not going to have good options at the 108, 109 Superflex, and this is 202 and one quarterback.
I'm barely putting the 202 and Elijah Moore into this conversation.
Right. I do think Elijah Moore and George Pickens are somewhat comparable. I think that they have similar floors and similar upside, but I think Elijah Moore has a better chance of hitting that because he's a better quarterback. And they're also a higher volume offense for passing.
Yeah, that they will be, I'm sure.
So I kind of like Elijah, and I liked Elijah more than George Pickens, both of them coming out of college. So I'm still holding on to that a little bit too.
I get it.
So I think this is a very fair trade. Obviously, the analyzer said it's a very fair trade. They're only 22 points apart, but I like the Breece Hall side on this one.
All right, so we do have one more, and we're going long, so let's just go a little bit. Treylon Burks, wide receiver 22. Like I said before, I was going back and forth between Wilson and Burks as my favorite wide receivers coming in, and I'm very happy with new GM and all of that stuff. So I'm ready. I'm ready for the offense to change and be different. So let's see how this goes. So Treylon Burks, wide receiver 22. In a 12-team one quarterback league, we have Treylon Burks and Rashad Penny for the 112 and 203. Treylon Burks at 403, Rashad Penny at 48 for a total of 450. The 112 at 206, the 203 at 152 for a total of 358. I would not send Treylon Burks for the 112 and 203 in a one quarterback league.
Would you do it in Superflex? Yeah, that's just Treylon Burks easy.
And I get it. Rashad Penny got zero money. There's a chance he doesn't make the roster. That's how little money he got from Philly. But right now, he's a running back on the Philadelphia Eagles. How is he valued so little?
I don't think it's caught up yet.
It's been no, this is caught up. I'm talking real life, like leagues. He's a throw-in. Like, he is still not being valued whatsoever as an actual running back. And don't get me wrong, I have my feelings on Rashad Penny just due to the timing of his drafting and my fandom at the time. But when he's healthy, he does really well. And all I'm saying is there was another player who kept having soft tissue injuries in another city, came to Philadelphia, and had no injuries. And now A.J. Brown is the wide receiver 3. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, there it is. Of course, that means absolutely nothing. But like, it's just like, what if Rashad Penny misses 5 games this season, and that's it? And we know
he's the starter for the rest of it. I
don't know if he'll be the starter, but he'll be in the committee. You know,
he's the Miles Sanders role while Gainwell does his thing and blah blah blah. If that were to happen, he is a top
20 easily.
Probably not in total points, but points per game for sure. Yeah.
Like, again, when you're missing games, that's pretty much what you have to do. But on that offense, if he's healthy, again, I'm not saying he's Bijan Breece level talent. I never really thought he was. He was the best 3rd round running back drafted in the 1st round that year.
But he's good. He fits exactly what Philly wants in a running back.
He's not bad, is really what it comes down to. And again, this is absolutely assuming he's on the roster when the season starts. They don't go and draft Bijan or something weird like that. Like, a lot still has to happen, but like, this is Treylon Burks easy. All right, let's see if this next one matches up a little better. Treylon Burks and the 202. I'm guessing this is still 12-team 1 quarterback. Yeah, values are the same. Treylon Burks and the 202 for Deebo Samuel and Michael Thomas. That's interesting. Burks at 403, the 202 at 161 for a total of 564. Deebo Samuel 514, Michael Thomas 54 for a total of 568. So this is insanely fair according to the analyzer. I don't know. What do you want?
This one. So we are both not Deebo fans, and I knew that going into this one that was probably going to sway both of our answers. I do think Michael Thomas is a little undervalued at 54. Like, I'm not saying that he should be up by 202, but like,
so here's my thing with Michael Thomas. I'm fine not trading for Michael Thomas right now, and then having to pay around the 202 in season when he's scoring points. Like, I would rather wait, see that he gets on the field and plays, and then pay a price for him, as opposed to paying anything close to what that price might be. Like, if I can get him for 54 points, sure, I'll do that all day, because there is the chance he comes in and scores as a low-end wide receiver too.
Right. I mean, he only played 3 games, but he was a top 10 wide receiver in points per game last year.
I'm not, again, like, I am pretty risk averse when it comes to fantasy football, which I don't understand because I do so many stupid things. But like, I won't even say Calvin Ridley is going to come back and be a top 15 wide receiver.
Well, he is, but yeah,
there's no reason he can't. He never got physically injured. And he's getting into a much better offense. Like, so in my heart, top 5 wide receiver, no question.
Of course, obviously.
But I can't say that out loud and mean it and value him that way, just because, like, it would be good, but is it likely? But again, you also have to be willing to be able to pay those inflated prices when you have to pay the wait and see tax. That's what I call it. Like, and I usually am willing to do that because the idea of just tanking out on the trade is scary to me sometimes. But I still, okay. If my team is competing, I will absolutely just throw my hands in the air and take the cheesy safe answer. I'm copping out hard on this one. If I'm competing, I would take Debo and Michael Thomas. If not, I think it's a great pivot to Burks in the 202.
That's probably the right answer.
I know, and I will cop out and take the easy way out. Like, it is, Debo Samuel will be a top 24 wide receiver in points per game, most likely. He always kind of is around that area, with the ability to maybe give you a spike week or two. We also have no idea who their quarterback is. Michael Thomas has such a wide range of outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
But still, there can very well be points there.
We spent, so it's funny, this is a Treylon Burks section here, but I don't think we've talked about Burks at all. Do you like Treylon Burks?
Oh, I love Treylon Burks.
Yeah, like
I like him as a player. I like him in the idea that the second the new GM showed up in Tennessee, Derrick Henry went on the block.
Yeah, that's fun.
Because I love Derrick Henry. I love everything. He'll score points no matter what team he goes to because he is not human. I don't care how old he is. When he decides to step on the field, he's scoring points for as long as he decides to step on the field. But that's not the offense Treylon Burks will succeed in. So I love that they're stepping forward and that they seem to like Burks.
Yeah. I think if you were to, everybody asks, like, if Jameson Williams was in this draft class, where would he be among the wide receivers? But if Burks was in this draft class, is he your 2?
2 or 3?
I think he's my 2. I think as prospects, I think Burks is pretty close to. I'd probably have Burks as the prospect over JSN, potentially. Like, having not known anything about what happened in year 1, he's just a straight level prospect.
JSN is more versatile than Burks is, and we play in PPR leagues, and that's really what JSN is.
But Burks has the outside ceiling.
Don't get me wrong, and I'm a sucker for an X-type wide receiver, which is why I liked Burks so much. And that still has its place, and that still has its value. But I would definitely put JSN above him. And man, like, at this point, I'm just so used to saying I really, 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 really like JSN and Addison that it's hard for me to separate the two of them, which makes me think I'll put Burks third. But I could so easily be swayed differently.
Burks is my 2.
Yeah. Again, so I know we spent this entire time talking about every other asset in these deals besides Burks because it's bad show, but we know how we feel, so we just kind of didn't think it was worth saying, when obviously it is absolutely worth saying because you don't know what we're thinking all the time. You should by now. We've been doing this for long enough. Come on, you're part of the family. You should know.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, but this is running longer than we have in a while, and I need to eat lunch, and I haven't done that yet. So we're going to end the show. Dynasty Trade Show, I think it's called, and then maybe something like the DLF YouTube channel. I might be Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse. That is definitely Addison Hayes, as in Maze Hayes _ professional content creator. Snuck it in at the end. Catch you next time.
Yay.